So foam rolling is a really good technique to use, especially when combined with like different mobility exercises to create more flexibility and mobility sort of around a joint and in certain muscles and areas of the body. So really common areas, you know, after you train or if you're sat down a lot during the day, like your legs are going to get tight, your upper back's going to get tight. So a lot of these exercises help alleviate any of that stiffness or soreness and just try and rid yourself of any pain that you're getting throughout the day as well, whether that be through training or posture throughout the day. This will definitely help. So you can use different implements here to target different areas. If you're looking for like a general roll as a warm-up almost, you probably want to use something like the standard foam roller or maybe the massage stick. If you're trying to apply a little bit more pressure to a fairly specific point, then you might want to use something a little bit more direct and firm, like a lacrosse ball, a tennis ball, or you've even got these little peanut massage balls which you can make just by duct taping 2 tennis balls or 2 lacrosse balls or hockey balls together. So which implement you choose is sort of based on what you're trying to target. So have a little play around with different areas. There's no real rules to this other than applying pressure to a muscle. And as you'll see as we go through, almost taking a muscle through range of motion as you're applying pressure. So that's going to create like a shearing force. So to roll it on its own is great, but if you can apply pressure and then move the muscle whilst you're applying pressure, you're going to really force it to create a new range of motion and essentially bring it back to its original length. Okay, so if you know a specific area that you'd like to target, have a little look below this video and we should have a timestamp. Simply click on the timestamp that relates to the certain area that you're trying to target and it will give you a quick sort of minute or so overview on how to target that area. Okay, so we've got neck and traps first. So this one's fairly simple. You're going to use the peanut ball to begin with, if you've got one. Pop that underneath your neck, and then very, very gently you're going to apply pressure down onto the ball whilst bringing your head up and forward slightly. And instead of a roll, it's just short movements here. So if you want to do the same thing with the single ball, you're going to pop it in just a little bit lower, so moving on to the outer side of the shoulder, just above the shoulder blades. You're going to keep the arm straight and then bring it across the body, so across the belly button and close to the ear, pausing and working through those tight spots should you find any. Okay, chest is up next. So here you can use the corner of the foam roller with a fairly straight arm, corner of the foam roller just to work into the chest, all around the areas of the chest, but mainly into the corner, sort of where you go towards your armpit. And then you can use a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball here as well. So this would be used up against the wall, where ideally you can move the arm through range of motion whilst applying the pressure. So as you can see, that one will probably be fairly tender, especially if you haven't done this one before. Okay, so upper back, you're going to start with the foam roller again. You're going to put it underneath your shoulder blades and pinch your elbows together. You're very, very gently going to pull up and forwards on the head as you roll backwards and forwards. So we're only about halfway down the back and then working up to sort of just above the shoulder blades. And then from a side view, this would sort of look like you're turning slightly, but here from the back view you can see it's a little bit of a lean side to side. So you're not rolling directly over your spine, you're sort of targeting the muscles either side of the spine and opening up the shoulder blades by keeping the elbows together. Once you've done the moving version of this, you can actually do the static version. So you'd bring your bum and your hips to the floor and then very, very gently just allow your back to mould over the top. You'd bring it back to the start position and then go same again, working through any tight spots. Okay, so lower back's more positional than anything here, so you're not really moving a great deal. You want to wedge the roller in between your hips and your ribs. Fairly tender spot through there for a lot of people, and you're just going to roll ever so slightly backwards and forwards. And then also from side to side here as well, so you can lean into it forward slightly and then more into the back by leaning backwards. Glutes are best targeted with a ball, so for that reason we probably start with a tennis ball but move to a lacrosse ball or something a little bit firmer if you can. You're going to cross the leg that you're working over the other just to open the area out and get a little bit deeper, and then very small sort of circular motions using the ball. And again, you're going to lean slightly from side to side, sort of making a key emphasis on the outside of the glutes. So you're almost working up towards the lower back, and that area probably will be quite tight and tender. abs and diaphragm's a bit of a weird one, as it can make you a little bit drowsy. So for this one you want to use like a sort of a semi-deflated football, and probably only perform this either before you go to bed or after a training session. So you're going to apply pressure basically all around your abdominal region, so sort of like just below your belly button up towards your hips, just stopping in any areas that feel particularly tight. Then you can here as well use a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball just to work into the slightly more meaty area of your upper abs, or just below your ribs. So for that one you're working, like I say, mainly from the bottom rib and then about 4 or 5 inches down, just very short ranges of motion and stopping on any of those tight areas. So hip flexors, you're going to sort of work the top front of the leg, so sort of just above your quad, it's just sort of like the upper quad. You're going to work very small ranges of motion here, working sort of from the hips down about 6 or 7 inches. You can use the standard foam roller for this one, pausing and then bending the leg on any tight spots, or you can use a tennis ball or lacrosse ball just to get into those areas a little bit deeper. Now for here as well, you can work slightly to the outside of the hip as well, so it's quite common that those areas get really tight. Okay, so with quads we're just working a little bit lower than the hip flexors here, so this is probably the prime example to use this sort of pin and then move method. So if you do find someone that is a bit glued up and tight, you apply pressure and then bend the leg once you're applying the pressure. If you're using this sort of as a general roll, then you're just going to use large sweeping motions backwards and forwards, just applying pressure as you go. Then you can lean a little bit from side to side here, so we're going to cover the inside and outside of the leg in a minute anyway, but quite a common area that gets tight is just inside the knee for people. So for that you can use the flat roller or a tennis or lacrosse ball, just apply more direct pressure and then bend the leg once you're applying that pressure, because obviously you're not going to get that much movement with the ball, it's not going to be as movement based, but you can really get in deep here, apply the pressure and then take the leg through range of motion as you're applying that pressure. Okay, so adductors, this is a similar sort of principle. You're going to work the inside of the leg now though, long sweeping motions for a warm up, just a general warm up, and then you can get in a little bit deeper with the ball if you need to, or just stay on areas and then bend the leg, working your way up sort of into the upper groin, being careful not to roll over anything important, and then back down towards the knee. Now IT bands are notoriously common for getting tight in runners and people that sit down a lot during the day, so this is the outside of the leg. You're going to use your, almost like your other side arm and leg, to take some of the pressure if you need to, and then you can bend the leg. It won't be as effective as the quad when you bend the leg, but you can bend the leg to take it through a bit of range of motion, just making sure you dictate the pressure by how much you're putting on your arm and your other leg. Hamstrings are best attacked using the rumble roller, which is the more bumpy version of the standard roller. They can usually handle a little bit more pressure, especially direct pressure, so you can cross the other leg over the working leg if you want to as well, to apply a bit more pressure, and do the same thing with the tennis or lacrosse ball as well. If you've got any really sort of specific tight areas to work into, you can use the lacrosse ball in the same way. So calves are another one where you can stick to the standard roller to begin with, but then work in a little bit deeper using the massage stick if you need to. So here you're just going to roll very, very gently backwards and forwards, stopping on any tight spots as with previous muscles, and then taking the foot backwards and forwards as you apply that pressure. And again, same as the hamstring, you can add the other leg on top of the other just to increase the pressure, and then a little bit of a lean side to side is quite beneficial here, just so you hit the inner and outer sides of the calf as well. Okay, so the shin, or tibialis anterior as it's known, is the muscle just outside the shin bone, so you're not actually rolling over the shin bone here, it's the muscle just outside. Massage stick's probably one of the easiest ways to get stuck in here, and you can use that sort of pin and move method that we've used on other muscles as well, but you can also use the foam roller. So popping your shin, the outside of your shin on the roller, taking the weight with both hands and then the other leg, and then moving the leg backwards and forwards, applying as much pressure as you need to, and then stopping on any tight areas, pinning them down, and then moving the foot through range of motion as well. So So last up is the foot. So for this one you want to use a tennis or lacrosse ball based on how much pressure you want to apply. You can start with the toes just by splaying the toes out over the ball. Then you're going to work into the arch and the underside of the foot more, applying pressure to the areas that feel a little bit tighter as you go. And then once you've covered the base of the foot and under the arch, you're going to work the ball a little bit further back into your heel. And using the same technique here, more side to side than anything. You can't get a great range of motion, but just staying on the areas that do feel tight and applying more pressure if you can. So there's no main rules with this other than that you're trying to get something firm into a really, really tight spot. That sounds so weird. I was leading myself into it as well. More supple. If you want to get in a little bit deeper into an area, you can use a lacrosse ball. That was near to use. So if you're trying to get in somewhere a little bit deeper, I'm going to go each time. I'll go each time.
If you're going to try and penetrate deeper.
Really penetrate the tight spots. Come on, come on.